Hey lovelies, it's Ramona and this is video 5 of the Makeup Basics 101. If you've just found us and you'd like to start at the beginning of this series, go ahead and hit that link right above. Those of you who have been here and want to continue on, we're going over powders today, different types and how to use them, and whether we should do translucent or a colored powder. Let's go! Alright, so we're doing this in another video just so we have a little bit more time to dedicate to it, but normally the powder stage comes immediately after the concealer phase. You want to go ahead and set all of your liquid products that you have used very quickly so that you don't crease. That's why in the last video I went ahead and did the under eyes right then. Now we can go over kind of what that meant and why I was doing it. So powders are pretty simple for the most part. There's not a lot of variety there, but they are used for different things, so I wanted to go over that. You do have loose powders, typically are translucent powders. Those are going to be used for setting makeup, which just means you are locking it in place. Baking is a form of setting powder. That is where you take a loose translucent powder, you pack it onto a sponge or whatever applicator you use. Some people use a brush, I use a sponge. You put it on typically underneath your eyes, right on top of your concealer that you have put in. And then you cake it on, just very, very heavy, and you let it sit. And basically what it does is your body heat warms up that powder and it sets the concealer. It keeps it from creasing into lines, and it keeps it from going anywhere. That way you're not worrying about moving concealer later on in the day. Then after about 5 minutes, you just take a big fluffy brush, brush away the excess baking powder, and then you're ready. So I do use a translucent powder pretty much every day. I use the Cover FX powder. There are tons of translucent powders out there. I believe there's a drugstore one called Coty. C-O-T-Y. That's a very good recommended brand. Also, NYC has been around forever. They have a lot of really good translucent powders. So it really just depends on what you are looking for. But for the most part, most translucent powders are going to work the exact same way. So in the last video, I went ahead and baked my eyes while I was doing it. Now I'm going to set the rest of my face. What I use for that is the Revlon Color Stay in the shade Light. What it is just a slightly pigmented pressed powder that I use still a big fluffy brush, and I go ahead and pick up some product and then I just dust it all over my face. And that is going to set the rest of your liquid product. If you use liquid, if you use a powder foundation, this step is pretty much included in your powder foundation. You are applying both a foundation and a powder. There is no need really to go over and reset that. But feel free if you feel like you want to go ahead and lock it in. Just a very light dusting. And I use a slightly pigmented powder just to help warm my face back up after highlighting. And it does really get everywhere, so don't worry about if it's flying everywhere. Oh, and my hair makes my hair go everywhere. Okay, so now my face is set. So let's talk about the couple of different uses for pressed powder. Pressed powder is typically very compact, very travel friendly. So if I were going to take anything for me throughout the day for shine control, a pressed powder would be a good bet because usually they're going to have a sponge built in to the applicator. And if I get a little shiny on my forehead or my nose, it's very easy to blot away the shine with a pressed powder. They usually have a sponge included. You can use a brush if you feel like bringing a brush along, but they are great for compact, travel-friendly shine control. There are also different ways to apply powder. You saw in the last video I used my sponge to bake under my eyes. I feel like it gives me a lot more control over placing very specific powder. I use this big fluffy brush to apply it to the rest of my face. Different types of application work for different types of people, so whichever one is going to be the best for you, just kind of figure it out. Which one do you prefer? One thing to add about slightly tinted powder is that it's really great for people who on some occasions or even most of the time prefer to not wear foundation. And actually, I am one of those people. My day-to-day routine getting ready for work does not include foundation. I prefer a very light coverage. I don't have a lot of time in the mornings. I'm usually running late because of taking care of the puppy or my son, or I've just wanted to sleep a little bit late that day, but I don't give myself a lot of time in the morning. Slightly tinted powder can be really good for days like that. I will just throw on some primer and powder and go. And you'll see that in the last video of this playlist whenever I do my quick get ready with me in the mornings, and that way you can see how it will look if it's just powder. It can help control shine along with the primers, and that way you still get a little bit of coverage because it does have a tint, but you are not putting a lot of makeup on your face first thing in the morning if that's not what you prefer. I hope this video was informative. If it was and it helped, go ahead and leave a like down below and subscribe while you're at it. We're gonna head over to the next video and start on our brows.